Yeah, I know, that's why it can be a little confusing.
Yeah, and I did this on a Mac, so it looks like it's doing a little wonky stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it might be.
Uh-oh, I'm gonna walk from my pocket.
We can do it. Just go. They're just pictures mostly.
Oh, wait, here we go. There you go.
All right. Hey, everybody. Wasn't that cool that what we just did? That was an awesome exercise.
Technology.
Yeah, it was really good. So thank you so much for having me today. What we're going to do, without further ado, is talk about passion, and we're going to break it down a little bit. We're going to actually get what is it all about? And I have a firm belief that passions are related to values, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. And we're going to get a little practical, because for some folks, love the visualization, and they're like, but how do I do it? What do I do next? What's an action step? Because I know there's a lot of action people in here. So we're going to break it down as to what you can do today.
Our speakers coming.
So my passion. Sana reminded me to make sure I told a little bit about my story. And I was thinking back to when I was in corporate. I was in digital marketing. And when the time would come to go back on the job search market, I would have the biggest problem with it. I just dragged my feet. I hated it. I hated it. And I kind of could never figure out why it was so bad. And transferred out of corporate a few years ago and became a certified professional coach and blended that with consulting and started working with startups and realized, wow, I am now in my own skin. This is what passion does. This is the difference. And so the contrast to that compared to where I was before, being good at something, being trained at something, functional, even seen as an expert and getting asked to speak at a lot of places, doesn't necessarily mean that you're tapping into your passion, right? So that's the difference, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And we've already heard it from several people that passion is going to make a difference to you as a business leader in your startup. But how do we know that? Well, we know it because there's a bazillion studies on it, right? I mean, I'm going to have you take a moment to read this because you can read it faster than I can say it. All right, and there's a million like that. In fact, I found a quote that I didn't want to put it up on the screen because it looks like textbook, but I'm going to read it because I found it after I started using the flame as my passion icon. So, coincidence? I don't think so. It's from the Financial Times late last year. U.S. women entrepreneurs are on fire. They lead the world in the number of businesses they start each year, with a launch rate twice that of other countries. They are educated. 70% have at least a 4-year degree. They also out-innovate all other women entrepreneurs globally and beat their U.S. counterparts, male counterparts. Collectively, women entrepreneurs are a formidable economic force that creates new products and services, disrupts entire categories, and remakes the entrepreneurial landscape in their own images. On the surface, this all looks like a reason to break out the bubbly. Record levels of women entrepreneurs, exciting innovations, and amazing female-infused, high-growth companies. So what's the problem? The staggering amount of entrepreneurial potential being left on the table. So that's what we're going to talk about, potential, right? It's sitting there. That's what a superpower is, right? Like it's sitting there, it's a superpower, and we're going to turn it on. All right? Now, I'm going to get very practical for a moment. Who here is seeking funding or has done it recently? Oh, not that many. All right, well, at some point, it's probably going to come up. And
self-sustaining heroes.
I'm sorry?
Self-sustaining.
Self-sustaining, I love that. I love that.
And opportunistic, so I think people will take funding today.
Exactly. There you go. But one of the things that, this is just using this as an example of, where the potential is. VCs choose their startups on pattern recognition, right? And what do they recognize? They recognize the guy in the hoodie, the Mark Zuckerberg, right? So this is the new pattern we want them to recognize, right? They're mostly male, they're mostly white, we need to create some new stories, some new patterns for them to recognize, new patterns of success. It's time we change the pattern, and I want us to think a little bit bigger than ourselves, right? Like me for my company. Think back, 100 years ago, there were women out there who helped us get the vote, right? You mentioned, like there are still issues going on in the world, right? Like, we're lucky to be here, but because there were women out there who went before us to give us freedom of choice. And we're still working on work, right? The idea of thinking bigger, I push entrepreneurs all the time because I see often, especially first-time, entrepreneurs that haven't been out in the working world as much, and they will be creating a product or a feature. They'll be sort of doing something small because it's something that they thought of that's right in front of them. And I forget who said it, but they said, if your idea is not going to impact 1 million people, don't do it, right? How could that thing that you're trying to do be part of a bigger picture, right? Who are those 1 million people you're going to impact? And I took that very seriously. And, in my own context, for instance, I am working with lots of companies. And so, vicariously, I am impacting millions of people because, each one of those companies is going to change and impact more people. So how can you make it bigger that way? In a real way, but, so that people will see that you've got a much bigger agenda. Does that make sense? Yeah? Yes?
So one of the ideas that sort of helps me is my cause, whatever that cause is that I'm passionate about, that should be so big that I don't feel like I have to shrink, right? That cause is what drives me. And that's something that I will climb on top of a mountain and yell at the top of my lungs about, right? And despite whatever feelings I may think about, like, oh, maybe I should downplay it a little small, that other guy's lying, I don't want to appear like that. But if the cause is really important to me, then it doesn't matter how big I go. Like that, I'll probably go as far as I can. So I don't know if that helps a little bit, but find a passion and find a cause that is so big that that's what you actually want to show.
Brilliant. I think that's it.
Thank you.